before you say it, yes, I know I've shaved. But look. Yeah, I know, okay, I know. No, but really, how's it going, Flash family? Welcome to a brand new Flash breakdown, and we've got some kind of new information coming out of DC Fandome Part 2. I think the consensus is kind of underwhelming to a degree of some expectation. And I say that also from personal experience, just because my expectations weren't mega high. It's just for some of the DC Fandome panels, I expected at least maybe a suit concept art, if you know what I mean, for, let's say, the Batwoman suit, or maybe the new Superman suit. I know there's some time away from those coming to fruition, but whether they were made or not in real life, you would have thought perhaps they would have settled on one, and that would have been a cool thing to do, especially for Batwoman, but that didn't happen. But hey, this isn't about Batwoman, this is about recapping and breaking down the new details that we got from the Flash extended panel. Most importantly, guys, I would love to read your opinions on what is said, and what do you think some of this may mean coming into the Flash Season 7 down in the comments below. As always though, do me a favor, check the top pinned comment for all the links to my social media and all that good stuff, including my Discord server, but let's get into this. So it did start off in terms of like information that we sort of already knew, and then obviously the first panel was cut, and this is where we got all of that new information, or extended information if you will, from what Eric Wallace was saying. Things like episode 20 is partially the first episode of season 7. We already knew that because they already had 85% of the footage that they were able to use, and they also knew at that point in time where they were going for season 7. But let's talk about Cecile before we get into the Godspeed stuff, and Iris. There's some few teasers there that I want to get into, but yeah, trust me, the Godspeed stuff and the extension on what we learned through detail about him definitely has a few ideas floating around my head. I do want to maintain and stress that it is speculation, but Eric Wallace did give some interesting stuff out that I think, well, I would love to just know your guys' opinion on what I'm about to say in a few minutes. So as for Cecile, it's teased that her powers have been passive so far, which is completely true, but going forward, we're going to see them evolve to be something a little bit more active, and then they're going to explore that, and she's even going to struggle with it and find her own way with it, and even possibly get into a little bit of trouble with it along the way, which, you know, isn't really mega surprising of a storyline. It's going to be interesting for a character, especially if she's getting new powers, obviously, and even getting into trouble with it a turn. I don't think she's going to go fully fledged evil or anything like that. They did kind of tease something or going playful with that. Even in the Flash trailer, we had Top saying, imagine what you could do with your powers. I used to be an empath or whatever. So I think they're going to play with maybe a darker possible route to Cecile that she could have taken on Earth 54, for example, but we know that's not going to come to actual fruition. But nevertheless, it's going to be a lot more of an interesting, tangible storyline than what I think Cecile has had to play with in a long time. It's definitely interesting that she's a meta defense attorney or whatever now, but we needed more, and I think that's what they're doing with this. Candice Patton, in terms of Iris, did hint at quite a few interesting things, and she kind of posed it in the way that she was questioning would it happen, in kind of a way it's like, well, do you know this is going to happen, but this is the way you're phrasing it, in a kind of sense. So, for example, she did hint that she was wondering if there'd be any residual resentment there for how long she's been in the Mirrorverse. And when she says resentment, it's for like the Team Flash members. And later on in the panel, she did say in terms of Barry and Iris that they will find their way back to each other eventually. So as Candice just said, and what I want to expand upon this, so yeah, maybe the residual effects from coming out of the Mirrorverse, of which she did note in the panel, is also a possibility. We will definitely be seeing how she's affected having spent some time in the Mirrorverse world, in her own words, with this maddening villain. It's interesting she decided to just phrase the wonder of, I wonder if there will be any kind of resentment there for like how long she's been in there and how long it took Team Flash to get her out. I don't think I wouldn't like that. I'm not trying to sound bitchy or anything. It's just like, I don't want Iris to come out and just be like, you took too... I don't think they'd phrase it like that or make her act specifically like that, but it's like they were working their ass off. Barry had a watch like this and had no speed. So if she comes out like, hey Barry, ming ming me, then I'm going to be like, screw you. Don't do that. However, I don't think she will be, and I'm all for the Mirrorverse having altered her mind, and she 100% teased at that being at least the beginning factor in season 7 with her coming out, and it just makes me and reminds me of the synopsis of The Flash season 7. I know this pertains to the new threat because at the latter of that synopsis it says, in doing so through beating Mirror Master, that will threaten to destroy Barry and Iris's marriage or something. Well, that does one point to that's the threat, not Iris being a threat to her own marriage, but I'm sure this will be a little bit of a strain if she comes out a bit, you know, viewing things backwards, through having quite literally been viewing things backwards in the Mirrorverse. And I do find it interesting that she did also say, and I'm going to reiterate it again, that they will find their way back to each other eventually. So is there going to be any Barry and Iris drama? I feel like that was teased a little bit there. And also in terms of seeing things backwards, what if she comes out now having, like, seeing their relationship and their love backwards? I know that may seem reaching, but I wouldn't put it past the Flash show for doing something like that, especially living in the mirror world. But let's get on to the big bads. Let's just get on to Godspeed. As for more emphasis on Godspeed, as it was confirmed before, I've done a whole video on this, Godspeed is indeed one of the big bads of Season 7. I believe he will be the first one. Now, as for Eric Wallace did say, and I quote, "I don't like spoilers, but let's just say there's a certain speedster with a white costume whose clones kept showing up, and it was really, well, Team Flash had to deal with that, but we never caught the real guy or girl. But let's just say we might find out that mystery this season." And he goes on to talk about what we went over before in my previous video in terms of why they're incorporating Godspeed, because new fans who are reading the current run will be welcome to the show through having Godspeed, obviously, in the rebirth iterations of the comics at the minute. This is where it kind of got even more interesting for me. And, you know, obviously my freaking speculation synapses are tingling, because it's like, ooh, could this mean this or something like that? Because as I always say, things are never copy and paste. They do bring elements of that into adaptation, but it's also often innovative as well. They try and bring something fresh. So he says, Godspeed, unlike the Reverse Flash, has no emotional connection, supposedly, to the Flash. So the question is, why is Godspeed angry at the Flash? He ends it with, "We've got to keep the show fresh, and we've got more to say." So that is my literal interpretation of, oh, we are bringing in Godspeed, but we're going to add more to it than what the comics did and probably invent a whole new kind of motivation for Godspeed whilst, well, yeah, obviously maintaining some stuff, but I think this really does mean new innovative ground, and as he says, keeps it fresh. Well, yeah, of course you would do that. So if you're thinking like Rebirth storyline, identical to that, not going to happen. And at the same time, no, I'm not saying it's going to be to the extent of, you know, as he teases, why is Godspeed angry at the Flash? Why is he going after him? And he teases how Reverse Flash obviously has an emotional connection with Barry and that motivation there, but Godspeed doesn't in the comics. And then he like emphasizes supposedly, which tells me as a little bit of a hint that they're going to give the live action Godspeed an emotional connection to the Flash. As I said, I don't want to go too far to the extent of what if this emotional connection for Godspeed being angry at the Flash is someone like Eddie Thawne somehow coming back and being under the disguise of Godspeed. That would be an emotional connection. What if this is their kind of mock-up of Cobalt Blue but in Godspeed? I know that sounds kind of crazy. It feels like you've got a paint palette and you're splatting all kinds of character attributes onto one character, but then again, I really wouldn't be surprised. So I'm really intrigued as to the fact that basically Eric Wallace teased that the Reverse Flash obviously has very much so an emotional kind of motivation with Barry. Godspeed doesn't on paper, but if they bring that into the live action one, well, what does that mean? Why would he, unless he somehow knows him, has some kind of history with him? What if they could bring a character back like Eddie Thawne? I know that's been almost a meme at this point in terms of speculation, but I think we are grasping for something like that, and that would be awesome. Maybe it could be a whole other character who we've forgotten about. I don't know. All I'm going to say is, in conclusion, that does excite me. As for other speculation, you can honestly fire off in a million different directions, which is why I'm not really going to bother going for anything else other than saying the cliche, oh, what if the emotional connection is Eddie? And that would make sense with, and this is why I wanted to bring all of that up, even though it's reaching, say, Eddie, just because, you know, Eric Wallace teased this emotional connection as to why Godspeed is specifically angry at the Flash. Well, the synopsis did say, after defeating Mirror Master, it will unleash a new threat that threatens to tear Barry and Iris' marriage apart. Well, it wouldn't make too much sense as to why you'd be so angry at Barry for, like, being hooked up with your ex-girlfriend, but that's kind of over-exaggeration, but it would be a motivation of some sort. I know this lacks so much thought and depth, but you see what I'm trying to go for here. Why would some random-ass villain be angry at Barry and threaten to tear apart Barry and Iris' marriage? And we know Godspeed is the first villain, so that coincides with that latter of the synopsis, so you get what I'm saying. I feel like we're getting towards the right path, but we're on the side of the path. We're not like on it, but we're not going down different avenues. I feel like we're almost there, but we just can't connect all the pieces of the puzzle together with Godspeed's angry motivations and emotional connection to the Flash that will be happening in this season. So yeah, I definitely just rambled there, but that kind of really has me excited. I think we all love speedster villains, but when they come in with an emotional connection to Barry, and there's a reason as to why they're angry, but it's another kind of mystery element to it, it makes you think a lot, and always emotional stories with villains on the Flash have always done very, very well. I at least it's been the best entertainment and drama for me as a fan, rather than that of an interesting villain like Clifford DeVoe, whose portrayal was amazing, but the season definitely not, in my opinion. I appreciate all that stuff, but this is the stuff that really grips you as a viewer, the more emotionally invested side, and the fact that there's some kind of like grudge here and a connection, like the Reverse Flash connection, not quite like it, but you get Eric Wallace's point. That has me excited and gives me a lot of hope for this storyline in season 7. Now, other details. Now, this came out a few days ago, but like Joe's story is going to reflect very much so as to what's going on in the world and the minute. Eric Wallace kind of used the words of how it's very informed by the world on fire these days, and they kind of have this responsibility to reflect that in the show, if you know what I mean. So Joe's going to have quite a story of substance this season, and not that he doesn't before, but even more so than ever, really. As for Harrison Wells, fans asked what's it going to be like for this Wells to have a million Welleses in his head, and apparently we're going to find that out real fast. And as for the gold boots, well, we are going to get them at some point. That's like a low-key confirmation. But as for when, well, it's not going to be anytime soon unless they're completely lying through their teeth, because Eric Wallace approached it from the standpoint of when's the right time to unleash them. And he said, I think a story is the best way to unleash them, and he's determined to get Grant his gold boots, but as he wants to implement that in the story, and they have to be earned, in his words, he can't say when, because I guess that hasn't been written yet, if you know what I mean. So guys, if you haven't already, steal Clifford DeVoe's thinking cap, put it on, and let me know your speculation as to what that connection to Barry could be, why he's angry at Barry. I need to know. I would need to know what you're thinking. Let me know what you thought of my one. I know it's the cliche one with Eddie. I'm not saying that is dead set the thing they're going to do, but keep in mind the synopsis of season 7 right at the bottom and how it threatens to tear their marriage apart. That does seem something that a villain would do to Barry if he's angry at them. Why not F up his marriage with Iris? Especially maybe if you know the identity. So other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. I've got more ones coming out in the next 24 hours, probably a Titans one and stuff. So keep an eye out on the channel, of course, by subscribing with notifications turned on. Click the all button. So yeah, I'm gonna dip. Got more things to talk about in other videos. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you speedsters in the next video. Goodbye.